Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope all of you are doing well, and today I've got a video on another version of Collided Worlds, but this one's a little bit special. You see, if you've seen previous videos on Collided Worlds, you'll know that they're different versions of a trading card game I made. Well, I also, back in around 2013, I believe, made a board game RPG called Collided Worlds as well, and that's I've been digging around through some of my old stuff, and I found it, and figured I wanted to show it to you today. So here we go, and this is the original draft of the rules I made for it. So it's a co-op RPG that's played on boards, which I will show off some of the original boards I've made for this game. And so basically, it's for 1 to 4 players at a time. There are different characters you could play as, and basically, players start by creating a character, choosing a class for them, and then you pick the map you want to play. And there's an order for which you go through the different maps. So players would take turns rolling a die to move the party around the board, and there are different kinds of spaces you can land on. Like there's battles, which are the most common. There's gold, where the party leader collects gold. There's items to collect. There are traps you can land on, events that can trigger. And there are also keys to find that if you land on the key space, it opens up a matching keyhole to advance further along the board. The battles in the game are turn-based. Characters have different stats like hit points, energy points to use special skills. There's also strength, intellect, agility, that sort of thing. And there's different enemies to fight as you go along. And you can use regular attacks or skills. Enemies also are, instead of being controlled by a certain player, they're actually controlled by dice. So different enemies have different actions they can take, and when you roll a die, and depending on what you roll, they'll do that action. There's different status effects as well, like poison, sleep, etc. Players can also gain levels after they reach 100 experience, and that's 100 experience for every level. The way experience works in this game is each enemy has a base value they give, and as you gain levels, that number will decrease. So you're kind of encouraged to fight stronger enemies and continue further. And you'll also get different attribute points to boost your different stats, as well as skill points to gain different skills. There's also a weight system of backpack space where you can carry different items. Based on, you can only carry as much as in your backpack, and that will increase as you clear different dungeons in the game. There's also some more stuff here about the different how you do combat as well. And then I want to get into the different jobs that are in this game. So you got your standard warrior. I think originally there were 6, but I've added quite a few more as I went along. So you got the different classes, how much stats they start with, as well as different skills they can learn. Then you've got a little portrait of each one. You've got the brawler here, who uses physical attacks pretty well. You got a thief. You have your white and black mages, which are some of your spellcasters. You've got the red mage as well as different lists of skill trees for the different weapon types, including your bare fists, knives, staves, swords. You have another class in the pyromaniac here who uses different missile attacks. He has like different fireworks weapons he can use, which are very powerful, but also deal damage to himself. Speaking of which, you got fireworks. A couple of the other different weapon types. Then you've got some more classes. You got the Performer, who uses he has a special kind of ability where a lucky strike where you have to roll for its effect. They have different effects they can use. Merchants, who are kind of based on carrying items and using them more effectively. You got Rangers, who can use bows. Paladins are the most defensive class. Gladiators, who are basically the most offensive based class. They're focused on high damage over all else, to the point where they can even deal damage to themselves if they're not careful. You have Assassins, who are basically glass cannons. They are fast and have high attack, but they don't take hits very well. And of course, the Sage, who's the ultimate spellcaster. You have a Green Mage, who can use different status altering spells, and the Elementalist. You got a Berserker, who's another physical class, as well as a Summoner, who I haven't actually drawn, but there's different kinds of things that they can summon, which provides different effects. And if I turn the page, you can see all the different summons and what they look like, as well as their effects. And that about does it for like the rules and the classes. I kind of want to get on to showing off the maps, because there's quite a lot to show. You got different you have the towns with different facilities. You've got like an armory, a shop, and a forge where you can craft different items using materials you find, and you've got a mine you can go down to find those materials. There's a training ground, which kind of gives you an example of what the boards look like. Your goal is to ultimately get from the start to the boss space and defeat the boss to win. So you can see there's a gold space, enemies, there's a trap and an item. And there's the key and a matching keyhole to find. There's another town which has a bunch of different shops in it, which are different from the ones from the first town. I believe on the back there's one of the levels of the mine. This is, I think, the deepest level of the mine that there is. And also you can see that the different enemy spaces are numbered, because they actually reference a different sheet of paper that has the list of all the encounters you can run into, which shows you what you encounter there. Here's the world map that your party travels across. You got this starting village here, and these stars represent how many dungeons what level of prestige you have to be to get to that area. So for example, you have to clear the training ground to get past the first star, and then the Greenhorn grasslands to get past the second star, and so on. There's also a thing called islands, which also open up. Players could create their own islands to host adventures on if they wanted to. Though I think that was a little underutilized. Then you got the second half of the world map, which contains the higher level areas in the game. And now get into the dungeons proper. There's the first proper one, the Greenhorn Grasslands. It's a pretty simple layout, but they do get a little more complicated. You got the first level of the mine, along with the second level. The one I've shown off was actually level 5. There's 5 levels to this dungeon, and you can only go to different levels of it depending on how much of the game you've cleared. There's the third, and then there's the 4th level. And then here's the second proper level of the game. It's the Crusty Caverns. You got this little loop going around, which has and this has a second level. So yeah, the dungeons also have multiple levels, just like I showed off with the mine. This has another loop that you travel around to get to the end. I'm trying to look through here. So you got the Crystal Coast, has a little beach you go around to go into a little cave, which has different crystals in it, culminating with sort of an icy place in the deepest part, which has a massive loop you go around to find a key to. And there's a special chest here which contains a special item. See, I didn't really cover this, but the chests are marked in different ways. You've got like your common items in these, and the ones with stars have rarer items. And then there's the special ones which contain very unique items to collect, called these pure metals. There's 4 of them, and they're needed to forge the ultimate weapon. And then you've got the 4th dungeon, which is probably the biggest, one of the bigger areas. You got the outside, the Magma Mountain base. There's different parts of the cave as well. And there's a basement which has magma that if you land that each tile you pass of magma, these orange ones, you'll take extra damage. There's more cave, and then there's the summit, which you go up here, and there's a dragon boss you fight at the end, at the top. 5th area is the Sand Sanctuary, which has different parts of the pyramid you go in. Here's the outside. And then you've got these different pieces of the interiors with quicksand, which takes you outside if you land on them. Got another area of the pyramid interior, along with the final one that leads to the boss. You got the Flying Factory, which is another massive map which has slides that from later areas, which allow you to go back to the entrance if you want. And they have conveyor belts, which if you land on them, you get taken to different places. And then you've got this whole maze of conveyor belts which you have to travel around to get to the boss. And of course this is actually the area before the big maze of conveyor belts where you go around in this loop, and you have to land on this little switch by exact count to get to the final area. And then you got the final area, which is the biggest. It's the Twilight Trench, which is home to the final boss. You have to which has a few different mini bosses to open these keys. You have to defeat all the mini bosses to be able to get to the final boss. You can see there's one of them right there. And Area 3 introduces these toxic tiles, which deal damage if you pass through them, just like the lava in one of the previous areas. You've got one area that has different teleport squares, which take you to different these little isolated sections, and of course they're labeled. It's a pretty big maze. Pretty complicated, just what you'd expect for a final dungeon. The final pathway is a little bit more linear, which is the Area 7, and of course, there's Area 8 where this big void where the final boss lurks. And then you got one of the islands, which the islands can have their own world map. And just like the regular world, they have different areas that can only be accessed through clearing portions of the main game. There's a forest on the island. I don't think this island was ever finished, but there's still quite a lot of things done on it. You got a canyon. A little bit of a descent into the canyon as well. And that about does it for the maps I've made. Now I just want to show off a few other things I made. I've got different character sheets. Some that have been filled out, others that have not. But I've had quite a few people play this with me. over the years with different classes. Someone was an elementalist. I think this one's one of mine, which was an assassin who made it to level 8. So the characters, you have your first page, which has all your basic stats, the different skill trees you've advanced in, your equipment. Second page has all the skills you've learned, as well as any passive traits you may have. Final page has your gold, as well as the items in your inventory, as well as your prestige, which you gain after clearing different dungeons in the main story, which allows you to carry more items in your inventory. So there's a lot of different colored character sheets there. There's a lot of other references as well. You got the whole list of buffs, as well as different status effects. You have another little guide that gives brief overviews of the different vocations in the game, or the jobs, telling you how to best utilize their abilities, in case you want to go through that and learn a little more. And like the other class section I showed off earlier, this does show off some little portraits of the different classes. There's a whole book of crafting recipes in the game, so if you wanted to learn how to craft some of the different weapons and armor in the game, this tells you what you need to collect. There's different reference sheets as well for the different encounters, as well as some of the items you can scavenge, as well as mini bosses you can encounter. The dungeon have different types of ores you can mine for the mine. The pickaxe rentals, which dictates how powerful they are, how strong they are. Different items you can find, different events and traps. So there's a lot of them through. I think I've made one for all of them. And I've even included this one, which dictates how one of the bosses work, because it's a little complicated. But yeah, I have a lot of these. See, there's even more. I've got information on the different shops. You have one shop that allows you to alter your stat points around, as well as a raffle, which can get you some extra items. You can get bundles of items, as well as some extra gear that you can't get other places. You can enchant different weapons with effects, as well as acquire spell books. And this is the shop from the main village, and of the different ones you can get. The different colors simply represent different sections of the game. So the black ones are the ones you unlock at first, and the different colors represent different levels you have to be at to different dungeons you've cleared to get them. And then there's a whole list of items. I think I've made somewhere around like 300 or so items. And I've even made little cards for all the different items, as well as the different enemies, which all have unique appearances. If I can grab those, I might show them off. And finally, I want to show off a little bit of like this bestiary I made. I haven't put pictures of all of them in this book, because again, I've made all the different cards that have them, but you can see the different attacks that the enemies can have, as well as their stats, their base experience. And that about does it for all the different things in this game. Thank you very much for watching. Definitely leave a like if you enjoyed this, and comment below if this was interesting to you. And if you want to see some of the other versions of this board game there are, because I've made a couple of different versions. Like, I've made an edition 2, which changes how the classes work. And then I also started work on a sequel to this game, which also has some other changes, and I've also changed the bestiary to have more original enemies, because you can, as you can identify by the, if I can show it off, by the slime here, I've used some characters from different video games as the enemies, but I've made in the sequel, I made more original enemies. But yeah, you can definitely comment below if you enjoyed this and if this was something, if you'd like to see some of the other versions of this, definitely let me know. On the bottom left is the place where you can subscribe if you'd like, and on the bottom in the right corner is another video you can watch if you'd like. I'll see you in whatever video I upload next, and take care.